I still have just a couple of questions about the military recruiting issue. You said yesterday that, quote, the only thing that was at issue was essentially the sponsoring organizations, whether it was the Office of Career Services or instead the Student Veterans Organization, unquote. Now, it seems to me, though, that in addition to who sponsored the recruiters, the real question was what they were able to offer.
I'm sorry, what they were able...
What they were able to offer. The law, after all, says nothing about sponsors, and it says nothing about whether recruiting goes up or down in a particular time period. The law requires the same access to campus and students for the military as other employers receive. The Harvard Law School Veterans Association has said that they had a tiny membership, meager budget, and no office space. All they could do was facilitate a few student-initiated contacts with military recruiters. All they could do was establish an email account to receive inquiries from students. Now, is this what you referred to yesterday as, quote, full and complete access to our students, unquote? And did you believe that this was an equal substitute for what the Office of Career Services provided for all other employers, all other legal employers?
Senator Hatch, I did believe that it was an equally effective substitute, that what our Office of Career Services does, they do a good job, but what they do is basically no more than to ensure that students know when when an employer of any kind is coming, and to enable the student and the employer to hook up with each other. And that's what our Office of Career Services do. We have upwards of 700 or 800 employers that come to our campus every year, and what the Office of Career Services does is to make sure that students know when those 700 or 800 employers are coming and where they're going to be, and to make sure...
You have to admit that the facilities weren't as available to the military, to the recruiters, that they would have been with the office that you're describing. I mean, let me make that point a little bit more clear, maybe. Yesterday, you also said that the military, quote, the military at all times during my deanship had full and good access, unquote. Now, the Judge Advocate General's office, however, stated that without access to the Office of Career Services, quote, we are relegated to wandering the halls in hopes that someone will stop and talk to us. It is our view that denying access to the Career Services office is tantamount to chaining and locking the front door of the law school, as it has the same impact on our recruiting efforts, unquote. Again, I'm not asking whether recruiting went up or down, or whether there was some access to something at all time. The law requires the same access for the military as other employers, not access that the dean may consider good. Do you disagree with this description of the situation by the Office of the Judge Advocate General?
Senator Hatch, I appreciate that reasonable people can disagree about this issue. But I do think that the military at all times, regardless whether the Office of Career Services was sponsoring or the Veterans Association was sponsoring, had excellent access to our students. And over many years prior to my deanship, the Veterans Association had sponsored. The Department of Defense had thought that that sponsorship was fully adequate to their needs. And I think that there are other documents in those records which suggest the Department of Defense going in and saying, we met with a lot of people and it was great, and we very much appreciate the access that we were getting. The Office of Career Services really exists as a kind of, it makes sure that students know that employers are coming, and it makes sure that students have the opportunity to talk with those employers. The Veterans Association did a fabulous job of doing the same thing, and so I do think that the military recruiters had excellent access either way, and in fact, that semester in my deanship, the one period of 12 in which the Veterans Association did sponsor the interviews, in that year, military recruiting did go up, and I do think that the effects, in some sense, speak for themselves.